These are the complete interviews with the subjects for the documentary Encounters. The only editing performed on the footage are camera cuts, sound correction, and minor color corrections.
You look so excited.
Do I?
I said, you look so excited.
Do I?
I'm just playing. All right. You don't have to look at the cameras at
No,
all? You can just talk straight to
I'm
me.
going to talk to you. I know all
Yeah.
about that.
Okay.
So it's very nice to meet you,
Yes,
Mr.
sir.
Howard. I look forward to talking to you today.
Yes, sir. I guess let's start off with, before we get into why we're doing the interview, tell me your name and a little bit about yourself.
Well, my name is Dave Baker. I'm retired. I live in Pine Run in Ocala, Florida. It's a retirement community. I write for the Marion County newspaper. I'm a writer. I feature, our community every week, and it's rewarding. It makes me feel like I have a purpose.
That's always good.
Yeah, but I was a working man all my life. Had various, careers and things, and I made it.
Yeah.
I made it to retirement age, yay!
Exactly.
But like everybody's life, things happen, and have happened that are really serious and need to be addressed. And it's hard to find people that are willing to listen to what you have to say. They may not have ever even thought about what you experienced, but you got to get it out there. It's happened, and not just to me. There were other people there with me it happened to.
Well, let's talk about that.
You want me to go to the starting point?
Tell me exactly why we're here for the interview. What is that one thing that's happened that we need to talk about?
Well, it's got to do with alien, out of this world, from another dimension encounters.
Okay.
Sure, the government has now come forward and stated, yes, UAPs, they call them now, exist. They're not ours, they're not anybody's, they're not any earthly device, but that's all they're addressing. They're not going the step further. Now, there's been many researchers in the past that delved into the other side of it, of abduction. And that's where I come in. Because it all began with me one early fall night in 1973 on Jupiter Island in Florida.
Okay.
And it changed my life, the rest of my life.
But you want to dive in and tell us exactly what happened on Jupiter Island that night?
Sure. It's hard to talk about.
And while you're talking, if you end up needing to take a break, we're fine with that. So.
Sure. Okay, so I would say it was probably around 7:30 p.m. on a late September evening, and there was myself and 3 of my friends. We had left a birthday party that had taken place at the Jupiter Island Holiday Inn. And yeah, sure, we had a couple drinks. It's a party. But we were fine. I mean, nobody was wiped out or, staggering drunk or anything. And this was in 1973. And back then, that part of Florida hadn't been built up enough to where the main roads didn't go from Jacksonville to Miami or from Orlando to Miami,
Yeah.
So we were going back to West Palm Beach, which was the way we had to travel to get to Jupiter. Was we had to take A1A, which is the beach road, from North Palm Beach to Jupiter, because US 1 ended at Jupiter. And so there was a huge gap from North Palm to Jupiter, where that was just, woods, nothing back then. So the drive took about 45 minutes to get there and come back, and it was a winding road on, that where now it's been straightened out, but this was back in 1973. Anyway, we got in our vehicle and we headed south on A1A, and I was a passenger in the back seat on the driver's side. And as we drove through the winding road, like when it wound on to the right, you were on the wood side. When it wound to the left, you were on the beach side. Now you could look out when you went to the left and you could see the beach and the waves, but you were up here. The water was here. So it was about getting, I would say, what you call dusk, where it's starting to get, you start to see little stars pop, like Venus or whatever, planets or whatever. And we came through this curve, and it was a beach curve. And this all happened very quickly. I mean, it was that. I can't snap it like that. Very quickly. And so as the car came through the curve like this, I looked up, and above the road, about 30 feet above the road, was an egg-shaped craft. And I was looking at it from the bottom, looking at it up like this. And underneath was a beam of light that spread like this. And so I followed the beam of light down, and I could see the rocks under the water, and the light was moving like this in a jerky motion. It was like they were searching for something. There was no noise, nothing. And the craft itself looked like it was about the size of, I don't know, maybe two of your vehicle that you drive, two, and it was egg-shaped, and it looked like a metallic black, like, I can't describe it. But when I saw it and I followed the light down and then I looked back up, the light went boom on me and it blinded me. Okay. The next thing I know, we're driving in the car on the road. It's pitch dark. Everybody in the car, the guy next to me, he's like this. The guy driving the car, he's like this. And his passenger is like this against the door. And all of a sudden I heard this loud, like a beep, and a beep. And it jarred me, and I came out of it like this. And I immediately, I looked around and I saw but the car was driving down the road. And I said, hey, hey, hey. And when I did that, everybody kind of went like this. And they said, and the guy driving, he goes, what? I said, hey. I go, did you see that back there? And they said, see what? I said, whatever that was, do you see that? They said, no. And so everybody just went, And so we went on with our drive. The whole time back to West Palm Beach, to where we were going, nobody said anything. But we listened to the radio. We had the radio on. Not one time did the DJ come on and say, hey, gang, it's 9:30, it's time for, whatever. It was, and back then, of course, it was the top 40 and all that. But no one came on and said the time while we were driving. So when we got to our destination, everybody got out of the car and they ran up to whoever they were going to meet or whatever. But I kept having this question about what time is it? what time is it? And the guys, nobody had a watch. And they, well, I don't know, and went on. And so one of the guys, he went into his house right there where we pulled up the park, and his little brother came out. And I asked him, I says, hey, you know what time it is? And he looked up at me, he said, it's around 11. I said, no way. And he goes, yeah. And so I said, show me a clock, please. Show me a clock. And so he goes, okay. He brought me in his house, and on the wall was a big clock, and it said 11:15.
So you lost a couple of hours out of it.
At least 3.
Okay.
And so when I saw that, I was like, oh my God. And so I ran out of the house, I ran down to the end of the block where everybody was gathered, and I went up to the guys, and I said, hey, I said, it took us 3 hours to get back from Jupiter Island. I said, it's only a 45-minute drive. And I'm going around saying, what happened? What happened to the 3 hours? Why did, and they looked at me, and they were like, I don't know. And they left, they split, they all left, and I never saw them again.
Do you think that they did see what was going on? It's just they were spooked by whatever happened, or?
I think they realized when I brought that up to them, why would it take 3 hours for a 45-minute drive? And so that night, I didn't sleep all night. And all I asked myself was, where was that time? What happened during that time? Now, not once in my lifetime, since that incident, did I ever have nightmares, or did I ever have any kind of dreams, or did I ever have like a memory or nothing? Never. Like you've heard some people where they say, they had these nightmares about this and that and beings and, and this, and that's kind of like a memory coming back to them, but that never happened to me. But what did happen to me was, through the years after that, I noticed, I grew up in South Florida. So when we're kids or whenever, even young adults, we go barefoot. Mm-hmm. Beach, sand, the whole. So, you always bang your feet up and all that kind of stuff. So I didn't really think much, but on the back of my heel on my right foot, there was like this lump about the size of a pearl. And it didn't hurt. I didn't have any pain. In fact, you could put your finger there, and you could kind of move it a little bit, mm-hmm. Move around it a little bit. But it never bothered me, So, but that little pearl in my foot had a bearing on the rest of my life until that pearl was taken out of my foot.
Tell me about what that is.
Okay. I would have to say I'm trying to think the year that I went to a podiatrist. It was I think it was in the late 90s, probably, I think maybe 97 or 98. And I went for a different reason. I had bone spur. Or it was diagnosed as that because they took an x-ray and the bone spur was in my left foot. And, it was hurt. So anyway, he treated me for it and this and that. Well, you know how podiatrists are. They want to look at your feet. So, he's checking out. He goes, I need to examine your feet. I'm like, oh, okay. So he sees my right foot and he goes, what is this? About the knot on the back of my right heel.
25 years later.
Yeah. And I said, I don't know. He goes, how long is it? He goes, have you always had this? I said, no. He said, does it hurt? And I says, no. And he says, He goes, how long? I said, I don't know, maybe 20 years or more. I said, doesn't bother me, don't hurt or nothing. He goes, well, tell you what, while I got you here, let me take care of this. I went, okay, because I never thought anything of it. So, you know how they do, they put you on the table and they put the little sheets up where you can't see what they're doing, you know, and so he numbed it, and of course, you know, what they do is as they're doing something, they're telling you what they're doing. So I'm you know, it's like you know, kind of boring big deal thing until he cut my foot open and he's looking at it. He goes, wow, this is strange. He said, it looks like it's pearl size. He says, it's white. And he says, it appears that it's not attached to your bone or anything. It's not a growth. It appears like, and he says, it looks like, okay. And so he took his forceps and he says, okay, I'm going to take it out. So he went like this, and all of a sudden he goes, it moved. And here I am. I'm like, what are you talking? What do you mean it moved? He says, it moved. He said, I went to touch it and it moved away from my forceps. And so he goes, I got it. And he took it out. And he says, my God, I've never seen anything like this. So he put it down and he took a scalpel and he cut it in half. And I'm looking at his face and he is in shock, this guy. And he's like, he says, I've never seen anything like this. So he sewed up my foot and he put it on this pan and he showed it to me. And it was like a grayish white membrane with veins in it, but it was not connected to my foot. And so he told me, I saw it. I'm like, oh my God, I've never seen anything like that. He says, I'm going to send this off and have it analyzed. And he said, and when I get the results back, I'll contact you. I said, good, thank you, sir. So I left, and I waited 3 months and never heard anything. So I got in my car and I drove to his office. And when I got to the office, it was an empty building. And I never heard anything.
We often hear how, and this is kind of the taboo part of things, that the government knows. But the taboo part is when we start talking about actual people and alien or people and UFO encounters. Yes, the government has admitted that there's UFOs, but they just don't talk about any of the other stuff. So I'm assuming you believe that this is kind of maybe what happened, is the government stopped.
Oh, I know that's what happened. You can't, there's been so much. I know that's what happened. Because of what he did, he knows too much. So he was taken out. But that's what that turned out to be 25 years later. But because of that being in my foot, I believe it had a bearing on the things that occurred between 1973 and 1997 in my life. So,
has the government, have you had anybody that's contacted you, or you know where I'm headed with this, since that time?
You mean like up till now?
All right, so
like,
the government knows that it's come out of your foot, or whatever entity knows it's come out of your foot.
Yeah.
Are any of them, and has anyone been in touch with you since then?
No.
Okay. We'll give it a pause.
All right, we're doing a TV shoot here. Any?
18. We're going to have a long one. It's going to be good. We're going to have some great stuff.
Hey, this is just encounter number 2.
Exactly.
You don't know how many you're going to have to sit through.
I want every one of them too.
Well, if you had the time, I want you to at least hear them. I don't know if you're going to add them all in, but I'm telling you, man, the stuff I experienced, and it's incredible stuff. Just incredible.
It's already incredible.
That was just the beginning. But everything I'm about to tell you is this on? Okay.
All right, so we are.
Look, everything I'm about to tell you stems from that first incident with whatever was in my heel. I've always believed that. Mm-hmm. That's the reason why I was tagged. Now, I don't know if those guys that were with me, if the same thing happened to them, because I never saw or heard from them again. And that was very mysterious to me. Why would that happen? So...
I mean, and they were your friends in school? And then just...
Yeah, well, see, I was 19, so we had gotten out of school, but they were my school buddies. But after that, see, that would have been the first fall after when we got out of school. And after that, that was it. Never heard or saw them again.
Well, what has happened?
What's happened?
What was the next thing that happened?
Okay. Several years passed. A few years passed. I got married, and we had a baby. And she didn't work. My wife didn't work. So I got a part-time job besides my full-time job, so she could take care of the baby. We tried that. And come to find out, my second job I got, because my first job was physically demanding, I needed a part-time job that wasn't. So I could work both jobs in one day, go home, go to bed, get up, go to work, So,
live for the weekend?
Well, the weekends I were busy, but anyway. And so my second job, I was a film projectionist, a movie projectionist. And I worked for this company called Movie Film Service. And the first night I went out with my boss and his daughter, he wanted to take me just to show me an example of what I would be doing. Because he said, you might not like it, so why don't you come with me on the first night so I can show you what you do. Fine. So he had a film service, and this was before, DVD or VHS recorder. And this is before that. So he had a rental film service. So what he did was people would, like a clubhouse or even in their home or for a party, they would rent our service to show a movie. A movie like Close Encounters of the Third Kind. So that particular night, it was my boss and his 8-year-old daughter and myself. And the equipment we took was a 16mm movie projector, a big movie screen, and speakers and wiring and all the stuff, and the film. And we went to, it was a mobile home park. And it was a show for people in the park. And the show was, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, of course. It had just, so they were making it available to film services at the time. So, it was a great big, yeah, everybody loved it, and the benevolent aliens and all that, and, everybody fell in love with it, and,
Yeah.
So on the way home, it was a long stretch, lonely road. Boss was driving. His daughter was in the front. We were all in the front seat, because back then the cars had the big, it wasn't bucket seat, it was a station wagon. So we're all in the front seat. And he's driving, and it's a lonely road that we're headed down, and there's nobody coming, there's nobody behind us, there's nobody in front of us. It's about 11 o'clock at night, and so we're headed down the road, trying to get back to where he lives. And he's driving, and he says, "What is that?" And I said to him, "What is what?" And he says, "Don't you see that red ball?" And I said, "What?" And me and his daughter said, "What are you talking about? What do you mean, red ball?" He said, "It looks like a fireball." And so I said, "No, we couldn't see it. We didn't." I said, "Where is it?" He said, "Look straight ahead." We're looking straight ahead. We don't see anything. So I told him, I said, "Stop the car," because he was frantic. "What is it? What is it?" And I told him, I said, "Stop the car." And there was nobody around. So he just stopped it in the road. I said, "Okay, get out, stand and point at it." And so he did. He got out and he pointed. And so I went over and looked down his arm. Then I saw it. And it looked like, it was like a red, it looked like it was far away. But it looked like a red throbbing. It was like pulsating, like this. And when I saw it, I said, "Oh my God." And we jumped back in the car, and he floored it. And so he was driving as fast as he could, and we were headed right for it. And as we approached the direction it was in, it expanded like this. And so finally the road ended into another road that was right next to the local airport. So we had to either turn left or turn right. And so by this time, I was actually setting up on the door handle, out the window, hanging out the window, holding onto the car, and looking at it. And there it was. It was above the treetops. I would say maybe 30 feet above a tall tree, like you might see around here, maybe 30 feet above it. And when he turned right, this ball turned right. And when it turned right, it became a cigar that was as long as 2 football fields and had portholes on the side of it. And it was just kind of floating there like this. And then it started moving in the direction that we were going in, to the east. And there was red, it looked like ice that was falling off of it. But the red would kind of disappear. But it looked like it was falling off of the cigar thing that was 2 football fields long. And as it turned, it turned with us. And then it went, as we're going this way on the road, it went up and out like this. And within seconds, it was gone. Just gone. And there was no trail of flame or nothing. There was no sound. Nothing. And so we all saw it. All 3 of us saw it. And we were all 3 of us, even his daughter who sat between us, we were in a state of shock. So right up here on the right was a little convenience store was still open. And so we're all in a daze. We're in shock. And he just pulled in to the parking lot, and he drove around in circles. And lo and behold, who walks out of the store but the Lantana Police Department? And so he just pulls over into a parking space and stops. Car's running, and we're all just kind of like, we're like this. We can't believe what we saw. So the cop, he walks over. You know, we had the windows down. He walks over, he grabs hold of the window, and he looks in and he says, "Hey, is everything all right?" And then we snapped out of it. And all three of us at the same time started talking to him. We're all talking to him saying, you should have seen this. Did you see this? And he's like, whoa, hold up, one at a time. So he talked to my boss. My boss told him. He talked to me. I told him. He looked at his daughter and he said, "Did you see it too?" And she went, "Yes," almost in tears. And so we asked him, "Can we make a UFO report?" He says, "I don't see why not." He said, "I've never done one." He said, "But let's try." And this is funny because it was the first time they had any kind of computer in a cop car. It was this great big thing, it's like it took up the whole back seat, you know.
Yeah.
But he typed it. He let us watch as he typed it in. And he typed in, "Do we take a UFO report?" And there was a long pause. And then we saw the message come back on the screen. It said, "Take the report." So he typed it in as we had told him. And so and then when he hit enter, it sent it. And within just seconds, a message came back and it said, "Negative IFO, rocket from the Cape." Well, as soon as that came back, we went, "Oh no, this was right above the treetops. This wasn't in North Florida. This was right here. This was right above those trees." So the cop looked at us and said, "Hey, I don't doubt what you're telling me." He says, "I see a lot of pretty strange things driving around at night that I can't explain."
About what year was this?
This would have been 1978 maybe, or around then. I think 78. So.
And did the policeman didn't elaborate any further, and just that was it?
Yeah, that was it. But if you go to the National UFO Reporting Center, you can my report is there, and so is the first incident of 1973. Okay. It's there. So that was in 78. Well, the repercussions from that, the worst thing I could have done was go home and tell my wife, because I had no support at all. So I had no support at all. And I even told her that my boss and his daughter saw it too. So right away, she had a closed mind to it, and she thought I was high or something, which certainly wasn't. But see, that's part of the problem with this. Even your own wife doubts what you've experienced and doesn't believe you and thinks that you're, full of it. So that didn't help. Yep. But that night, I couldn't sleep again. All right.
But no nightmares from it or anything
Well,
since?
no, that was a sighting.
just an experience.
It was a sighting, but other people were present. They saw it. In fact, my boss he's still alive in Boynton Beach, Florida. And I imagine his family is too. I haven't seen or heard from him in decades, but.
Did y'all talk about the experience afterwards, like next day or later
Oh
in the week?
yeah, sure. I mean, he was him and his daughter were affected the same way I was, and he told me, he says, no, he said, Dave, I haven't been able to sleep for like 3 nights. So, I don't know if anything more ever happened to him because, that job didn't last much longer.
Yeah.
Because of.
Right. You were getting into the time where you started getting beta and VHS.
Yeah, and let me tell you, it did it put him out of business. Yeah. Naturally. I mean, so I worked up until about that time with them, and then I stopped myself. Also, my wife and I divorced. And so for a while I was single, and it was not long after that, I would say maybe another year, 79, I was just driving coming home from work one afternoon, and I know it's been raining a lot lately, and anyway, I pull up to this light at an intersection, and it was kind of threatening, looking like it's going to rain and storm. And the clouds were very low. I noticed, to me, I thought it was unusually low. And I had pulled into this lane to make a left, and next to me, going straight, was this little truck pulled up, and it had like a couple people in the bed outside, on the back of the truck, and then the guy driving. And another car's pulled up. Nobody pulled in behind me, but they were on the side of me. So it's kind of funny because, sometimes you can look down the road, you see the clouds, and you can see it raining down the road, but it's not raining here.
Right.
Well, that's what started. And so I could see it look like it was, it's coming, Yeah. And so then all of a sudden, big drops, boom, boom, started hitting. And once again, all this happens very quickly, it can be seconds is all you have. So the big drops started hitting the windshield and around the car. The clouds were very low. Like, here's the telephone poles. The clouds are here. It looks like it. That they're right there, and they're right above the intersection. The raindrops are hitting big. So it all happens very quickly. At the same time the raindrops start hitting big, the guys in the little pickup, they start jumping out to run around and get into the cab. At that same time, the clouds above the intersection parted like this. And I'm here. Lo and behold, there's a craft in those clouds. And there's a porthole. And there's an alien being looking straight at me. Dead right on me. Looking right in my face and my eyes. And I'm driving, I'm like this. And I look up, and the clouds parted, and there it was, and it was looking right at me. And so the only thing I knew to do was I looked around, and I laid on my horn, and I started beeping, and I was going like this, pointing up at like this. I was beeping and blowing the horn. The guys in the truck, it's like nobody even heard me. Nobody looked. All I wanted someone to do was look at me. And look. And nobody even heard me. They didn't even hear it. And so the clouds, like this, the light changed. I went on through, and that was it.
What did the alien look like?
It looked like it was humanoid.
And are you, I guess you're seeing maybe chest up or face?
Yeah,
or?
no, I saw probably from here up. It looked like humanoid, but then it wasn't. It's hard to describe. The features of it. It had no hair. Didn't have any hair, and it had big black eyes.
Something like what we would call a gray.
Yeah, but it wasn't though. You know, because we'll get to that later.
Okay.
But no, I know it wasn't. It was, and as far as the color, it looked to me like the color. Maybe it was because it was darkened or something, but it did look like kind of a brownish gray maybe, or a dark, like a dark complected white person.
Yeah.
I don't know if I should say that, but and its features were somewhat, like I say, humanoid, but then it wasn't. Its ears, it didn't seem to have. It didn't have ears. Not like us anyway.
Yeah.
And it was like two little
holes, or
and then a little, just a slit.
okay.
But its eyes were real, and kind of up.
Turned almonds.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
to
Not
speak,
not
or
like
turned raindrops. Or
yeah,
something like
kind of like this.
Mm-hmm.
And it was looking right at me, dead on. And this is I've talked to, I told my story before to other people, and I was at a convention, at a MUFON convention, and I talked to some people about it, and they told me and this was odd what they said to me. They said nobody saw it because they said it was meant for you. And you see, that had to do with the tag.
Right.
That's the only.
Because at the time you still had it.
Yes. See, that tag went in my foot in 1973, and this was 1979. Okay.
And then just nothing else from that. Just clouds parted.
And
all right. So in the clouds, you've got the. How high are the clouds? You said
it's like they
just
were
just above. You said they were low. Just
they were
above.
low. They were low
Okay.
clouds. It's like they were just above the telephone poles of the intersection, that the pole or the light poles that hold the lights on it.
The craft.
So,
You said you saw a portal.
Yeah.
How does the craft look? From
Well,
what you can tell, I realize it's probably shrouded in the clouds.
yeah, but it looked like it was probably a saucer type. But see, I couldn't see the whole thing. When the clouds parted, I only saw the porthole down to that bottom, which it appeared like that bottom was kind of like this, and it was silver. This was silver. So judging from the part that I still couldn't exactly give you an estimate on the size of the craft, just from what I saw.
You just can't see wide enough.
I
to
couldn't see. Yeah, I could only see that part of it.
How about we're talking at this point 25, 30 years ago, more than that, 40 years ago. The port, is it just black in the portal, and you see or can you see through into the ship?
Well, that's what I'm saying. It was darkened, and so that's why it appeared there wasn't a bright light upon him to where I could see anything around him.
And the only reason you could see him is because he was lighter than the background.
That's right, and he seemed to be very close at the porthole. It's like he was right at it, is what it was. And the light was probably coming from outside. It was shining
Because he's
in on
above
him.
the clouds. coming
Yeah,
through
yeah.
Okay.
So, but it's a sign. But that turned out to be, something that other people had told me. They said that's because no one heard or saw, because it was meant for you.
And did you report this one to MUFON as well, or to the National?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That's
Have you looked to see if there's any other similar sightings with either a silver craft there, or back in '78 with the red cigar-shaped craft, or any other people that have had something, maybe not at the same date, but in that time period?
Yeah, there's if you go through that, you can. There's different ways to research that. You can pull things up by year. You can do it by state. You can like that. So, if you you go in like for Florida, you pull up Florida. Now you have to go through the years. If you can remember the year, now you can look through every sighting reported during that time when I reported mine.
And at the time, we didn't have a reporting center, and we weren't even close to internet yet.
Right.
So this is people having to remember the years as well.
Exactly. At that time, it didn't exist really. Really, even up to that time, that you could have really only called police or
the only real reporting you would have during that time would be, well, would you even have Project Blue Book in the late '70s? You may not.
No, you
may have some newspaper clippings.
They closed that in 1969.
Yeah.
So there really wasn't. I mean, you could call, the bases around and try to report stuff, and they would just.
But the military is not going to talk to you about it, even if they saw something.
You could go there and report things, and that was it. Yeah. You would never hear anything back.
We'll reset. All right. Segment 3. Okay, so we've got, basically you've seen 3 different things at this point. 3 different types of ships. The first time you didn't really even see the shape. It was just more or less the light kind of hit you, correct?
Yeah, no, I got a really good look at the craft.
Oh, no, excuse me. That was the black. That's right. You said that was the black ship, and it was shiny or metallic.
It seemed metallic, it was weird. It was like a liquid metallic, egg-shaped. Mm-hmm. So I did get a good look at it.
So a ball of mercury except black instead of shiny silver?
Yes.
That's kind of the constitution of it?
Right.
All right. And then we saw the red cigar-shaped ship. And then we had the stalker alien on the silver saucer.
Right.
And that was in '79. So,
yeah.
Where do we go from here?
From here, now it kind of gets a little more contrived and a little more serious about. I had a feeling one night. This is like in, I'd have to say, 1983. I lived alone, and one night, it's just kind of weird. I went to bed. I had my own little apartment. I was single. I went to bed, and I kept having this like a strange feeling that there was a presence in my room. And now see, here's something that people have talked about, and there's been some discussion about what they call sleep apnea and things like that, where you think that you're having a dream and it's so real. Couldn't, but it's, you know what I'm saying? They're
Yeah.
trying to dive.
And it goes into the sleep paralysis thing as well, I guess.
Yeah, to where now it's into that. Well, I don't, I never really, because of what's happened to me, I can't believe that explanation. But I know that one night, and it was a winter night, and believe it or not, this was South Florida, and it was cold, and I couldn't believe it. But it was really cold that night. And so I just had this feeling of it's like I was being watched, or there was somebody or something in my house, in my apartment. And so it made me feel a little uneasy. So I couldn't go to sleep right away. Eventually I fell asleep. But believe it or not, here I am an adult, and I got the covers up like this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, I don't know what time it could
I mean,
be.
are you thinking back to like these other 3 encounters that could be the same?
Well, I'm not. See, yeah, that's always been in my head when I get feelings like that. Is,
Are they back?
yeah, are they here again, or what's going, or what is it them? Is what I would say to myself. Is it them? So, I don't know. I think it might have been 3 a.m. in the morning. I remember looking at my clock, and all of a sudden, around my bed were these objects, these figures.
You want to describe them?
Yeah, they're about, I don't know, 3.5 feet tall. Skinny, big heads, black eyes, little. And I couldn't move. I couldn't move. The only thing I could move was my eyes.
Do you remember how many exactly?
Yeah.
Or is it just kind of fuzzy?
Well, no, there was 5 of them. Because my bed was in the middle of the room and there was space around it.
Kind of symmetrical, 2 on each side, 1 at the foot?
Yeah, absolutely. But at first, they were all at the foot. And I couldn't move. I was laying there, but all I could do, I couldn't move anything but my eyes. So I was able to look down, and I could, there wasn't, it was dark in my room, and yet I could see I could see outline. And so I couldn't move. And so it's almost as though whoever they were, or whatever they were, they saw I was awake. And so what they did, and this really was frightening, was what they did was when they saw my eyes and I was moving my eye, I couldn't move anything else. What they did was they came around the side of the bed and they got up, like they got in my face like this, right to my face. Came right up to my face. And I shut my eyes, and in my head, over and over, I said, "You're not here, you're not here, you're not here, you're not here." And I opened my eyes and they moved closer. They looked closer into my eyes.
I'm just moving the camera around, that's no problem. Because I want to keep going with this. All right, they're closer, and
so I shut my eyes again, and I repeated over and over in my mind, "You're not here, you're not here, you're not here." But then suddenly I had a sensation that I was flipping over and over and over, feet to head like this, that I was flipping over and over and over.
Now, you had the sensation. Are you still in the bed? Or are you above the bed?
I don't know where I am.
It's just almost like vertigo then.
I don't know where I am. And I can't now at this point I can't open my eyes. But I've got the feeling of flipping over and over and over. And the only thing I could think in my head was, my God, please make it stop, make it stop. And then the next thing I know, that I remember, I'm in my bed. I hear a crash like thunder in the distance. And I'm back in my bed. And I wake up and I look at the clock. It says 3:15. But it only felt like a few seconds. And there I was. And I couldn't, of course, the rest of the night I was up. So.
Now, these beings, are they more aligned with what the general public sees as being grays, tall, slender,
Yeah.
long arms?
Yeah. And as far as digits go on their fingers, see, I couldn't really see that. Mainly what I saw was from here up, because I was in the bed and they only came up so far, but they got around me, and I certainly could see the features of the head and the face.
No type of clothing or...
No. It looked like... It's weird. It kind of looked like it was all one thing. Just one... I don't know. Like it was either a suit or it was either just their skin. You know. But
I mean, they're often depicted as being, quote, naked, but you don't think of it being naked. So.
Yeah, that's right. It's kind of, to me, it was kind of like that.
It is what it is.
It is what it is. And you know, it's like, how can I explain it other than they all look like they had the same thing on. It was either a suit or their skin. And they don't talk, they don't anything. And I tell you, man, that scared me to death.
Did you have any nightmares or repercussions from
No,
that experience? Or like the next night, were you able to say, okay, if you're here, go on and come out? Or?
You know what? I want to tell you something about that. If you wish for them, you're never going to see them. Because they come when you least expect it. The thought of them and whatever is farthest thing away from you, and suddenly there they are. And that's how they've always done me. And believe me, I never wanted to see any of this or be involved in any of this ever in my whole life. And why they picked me, I have no idea. I'm not, hey, look, I'm just a regular guy. There's nothing special about me. I don't know what they see in me, but they saw something. Because they kept coming back. But I don't have any recollection. I don't have any recollection of what they want, what they ever did to me, besides the physical thing of the tag. But then they never hurt me, as far as I know. I never saw any other marks on my body, or
no health repercussions from it?
No, I never had any burns or any, you know what I'm saying? Nothing. They didn't hurt me. So, and I never had any dreams about having these horrible nightmares you hear that people have had. And I'm sure it affects everybody that's had an encounter differently.
And I'm going to ask you, this is a serious question, and I'm sure whoever you've told this to before, somebody's probably asked you at some point in time. the 70s were a very, quote, fun time. Have you had any drug use, such as like LSD and things like that, that could cause some of this to come back?
No. Hey, look, we all smoked weed, but that wasn't, you know.
Usually you don't hallucinate from weed.
Look, we all smoked weed, big deal. And yeah, I drank Boone's Farm wine, that cheap old stuff, you know. It was what, $1.19 a bottle, I think. But yeah, I mean, you know, and drank some beer and stuff. But as far as
none of the hallucinogenic
No.
or long-term effect acid type stuff, and
no.
and you know, sorry to ask, but you've got to ask whenever, because again, the stories, they're out there, and
Yeah.
but the stories are consistent with everything else that's out there too. So,
But no, as far as drug
yeah.
usage, no. I mean, alcohol, yeah, sure, and smoking pot, yeah. But you know, you never never heard anybody robbing a bank stone, did you?
Exactly.
Or you know,
Yeah.
I mean, no. I mean, yeah, we listened to what, Led Zeppelin and Alice Cooper and you know, Santana and all that, you know, and
But
yeah.
everybody did.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, but that didn't bring on this kind of stuff. And the thing was, this stuff would happen, and I would be straight as a board, not have nothing in my system, not even not even a beer. You know, this kind of thing didn't happen. They didn't wait for us to go get bombed at the bar and then meet us out in the alley. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It never worked. I never knew of it working like that, where I never heard a story or anybody's experience where they went to a party, they drank and smoked, and then when they left, the Greys were waiting outside. No, I never heard anything like that. Or that they came home from a party and they walked in their house and there was the blob from outer space or something. Ever.
And all of these encounters have happened in Florida.
Well, yeah, that's where it's where I mainly live. The ones I'm telling you about now.
Right, and I get that's where I was going to go with this real quick. Is
Okay.
So 73 were between Jupiter Island and Palm Beach, and then 78.
That was Lake Worth, Florida.
Okay.
And then also in the next one,
79, the silver one.
That was also Lake Worth, Florida.
Okay. And then your apartment.
That was in Lake Worth, Florida.
Okay.
So all this stuff happened. It happened to me wherever I lived. So it didn't matter.
But then again, you're tagged, possibly.
Well, that's what I've always believed. Trying to put two and two
The common
together.
denominator, yeah.
After me and the podiatrist, I pretty much, that's what it was. Discovered.
Now, through all this process with these first 4 sightings, because you hadn't seen the podiatrist yet,
Right.
so you just had no clue why you were the lucky one.
Lucky. Well, I didn't have any idea why it was why it kept happening. The only thing I could come up with was I would just happen to be in the right place at the wrong time. Let me emphasize that. Wrong time. A lot of people, and I've said this before and I'll say it again, you out there watching, you be careful what you wish for, because you just might get it, and it's not going to be the little ice cream cup that you want it to be. Let that be a warning to you.